This is our tough love to you in this episode. Your content and your copy is not that serious, so stop taking it so seriously. Hello, sunshine, and welcome back to the Gold Biz Podcast with me, your host, Rachel Traxler. Today's episode is how your copywriting is affecting your marketing as a photographer, how to approach your marketing, common mistakes that we're seeing, how to take it not so seriously, be lighthearted with it, how to create a cohesive brand voice and message and all of that stuff, and how your portfolio really impacts your copy as well. We are covering all of it, and I'm so excited to talk about this episode. We have with us Rachel of Green Chair Stories, and she is about to unleash all of the amazing copy stuff. So if you are a photographer or someone who says, yeah, words are hard, I don't really know what I'm doing. I think I know what I want to say, but I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to communicate it. This is going to be a really awesome episode for you. So make sure you grab some notebooks. But before we get started, if you haven't already, I would love if you left a review on the Gold Biz Podcast so that I can see what you're loving the most about it, and then also share the love in return. But this episode is jam-packed full. You know I like to get straight to the point, so let's dive into it. All right, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. I feel like this has been a long time coming. I'm really excited for this conversation.
Me too.
Yay. It's going to be good too, because I feel like copywriting is something that photographers either often forget, or maybe they just don't know how to do effectively, or they think they're doing it right, or they just are doing adapting to everything around them in the industry and all that stuff. So I'm excited just to dive into it a little bit deeper and stuff in this episode. So I think I kind of want to start off with just some mistakes that you see photographers doing. So can you just talk to us about some mistakes? Because then that might open some doors of ways we can correct it. So what are mistakes that photographers are making when it comes to their copywriting?
I mean, there's a lot. I could talk for 40 minutes just about that. But I think the biggest one you almost touched on, adapting to everybody around you. I think people get really overwhelmed when they sit down to write their websites. So they just pull up a bunch of other photographers that they respect or know. And then they're like, okay, well, they said it this way, so maybe I'll just change it a little bit. And not that they're copying. I think most people do not intentionally copy someone else's words. But I definitely think we are borrowing ideas too much in the photography industry because we want to play it safe. We want to do it right. So we see what other people are doing and we're like, okay, well, that's the way then, rather than kind of reverse engineering what we want to be saying and then figuring out how to say it in our way. So I think that's probably the number one mistake. It's not very technical, but it's just even starting. I think we're starting in the wrong place.
I agree with you totally. And I always say too, I think people come with good intentions. And I
100%.
think when people end up when there's copying going on, I don't think people are coming at it with that. I don't think people want to intentionally do that. No. I agree with you that they just, the borrowing idea situation, because they don't know how to make it themselves. Or most importantly, like you said, Rachel, is they want to play it safe.
Totally.
You see the path that someone else did and it worked and it was successful. Let's just go with that. And I'll get, on my own course and I'll course correct later. So can you tell us maybe some ways that we can embrace that and make it our own versus just looking to get inspiration within the industry? How can we look outside the industry and within ourselves, and where can we get that inspiration to then bring it in to then also create our own copy in our way that comes from us, not from others?
Yeah. I always tell people, think about the conversation you want to be having with your clients. Think about how it goes on sales calls, how it flows, what they want to know first and what they want to know at the end. And then you can organize your website to meet that conversation and to kind of mimic the conversations you have in real life with clients. So rather than looking at how someone else laid out their website and how someone else led their conversation, think about the real clients that you're interacting with and what they need to hear from you in order to be convinced. Writing a website is simply building a case for why someone should hire you. That's it. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. It doesn't have to be the most amazing looking website. I mean, obviously it's going to look amazing if your work is on it, but your work really should be the star of the show. The copy is just there to lead people through the journey you want them to have with you and your brand. So I always say for that first line on your homepage, you want to jump into the conversation the reader is having in their head. So think about where people are finding you. How are people getting to your website? What do they know about you? What do they not know about you? What's the first thing that you can say to that potential reader that's going to make them go, she gets it. Like she gets me and she gets what I'm after here. So people just want it to be, everybody wants to be like Coca-Cola or like some huge brand that has this like catchy one-liner, which is fabulous. And if that works for you, great. But it doesn't need to be that deep. It can just be a conversation and you pulling your reader into the conversation. And the more captivating and engaging you can make that conversation, the longer they're going to stick around and the more they're going to poke around on your website.
Oh my goodness. I love that perspective of it's just a conversation
Mm-hmm.
and everyone's looks different. So you don't have to have the same order of website of everyone else. And that also even just helps me get my brain is stirring around too, just hearing, oh, it's a conversation. I already immediately, when I heard you say that, start playing out the conversations that I normally have because
Mm-hmm.
I do them so often. I just know the direction and I know the kind of
Totally.
flow of them. I know how they flow. I know what people are going to ask next. And I know what they need to know now. And I know what their next questions are going to be just because I've been doing it long enough that I
Absolutely.
kind of know. And once you can pick that up, it's like, yeah, just start doing that in your website.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Mm-hmm.
also think that plays back to I'm huge into client experience.
Yeah.
And I just think that also gives a really good client experience too, to know that like as they're consuming your website and as they're taking that in and experiencing it themselves, if you can just be one step ahead of them that way and meet them where they're at, they're like, oh, she gets it. She knows exactly what I'm thinking. This is a conversation we have. And then by the time you do get them on the phone or like that booking process, they're like, we don't really have any questions because you answered it all. And like that just serves them deeper. And we're just having a conversation, basically. I am obsessed with that. And I love that. And I think that that's just such an easy way to look at it.
Yeah.
I love that.
People overcomplicate it a lot. And I
Yeah.
think some people don't want to read a website. They just won't.
Yeah.
And so even if you have all the information there, they're going to still reach out and have a million questions, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But the information is there for the people who want to go on that journey with you on your website. And the introverts who don't want to hop on the phone with 7 photographers before they make their decision. Like I have several friends who are that way. And I have several friends and clients who are the other way, where it's like, I'm going to narrow it down to my favorite 2 so I don't have to have more than 2 phone calls. So
Exactly.
not everybody's going to read your website, and that's okay. But some people are. They're going to read it front to back, every page, top to bottom. So you need to have the information there for that kind of personality.
Exactly, too. And it also goes back into like the buyer types, like what type of, you have to kind of speak to as, a sales, like we work in a service-based industry and people are buying our services or, from us, we have to speak to all different types of buyer types because we don't know what type of buyer people are. And so like you said, some people are going to read it, some people aren't. I think it's probably good to just be able to serve and speak to both. Yes. And I think that's a really good point, just to like have that in your head too, as you're laying things out and looking at things too.
Yeah.
And I know you were saying you don't have to have like this one liner and it can be whatever you want it to be. But my question is like, what is something like someone listening to this episode here? Like what is something they can like leverage in their copy and their approach that they're taking to their copy to stand out in a sea of photographers or in a sea of like other people's websites and whatever that looks like to attract their ideal clients? Like how could someone stand out?
Getting really specific about who that ideal client is. I think a lot of people cast a very wide net with who they are trying to attract. And the wider your net, the less specific your copy gets. And so it just becomes more vanilla. And there's a famous copywriting quote. I think Seth Godin said it. But if you're writing to everyone, you're writing to no one. Yes. And so if you're casting such a wide net with your ideal client, that's not an ideal client. It's not specific. And the copy you write to cast that wide net is just going to feel really generic because everybody can kind of relate to it. You don't want everyone to relate to your copy. You want some people to read the first sentence, the first headline on your homepage and go, oh, that is not for me. Yes. And that's a good thing. Repelling people is a good thing. There are way too many people on God's green earth for us to want to photograph all of them. And I think people even are too generic within their niche. Like let's say you're a wedding photographer. you want to think about your favorite clients and their main goals and desires. That is your ideal client, not where they shop, not how much they make, not what they do for work. That doesn't matter when it
Yes.
comes to writing your website copy.
Yeah.
That matters maybe in your client experience a little bit more, just so you know where people are at. But in your website copy, all you really need to care about is that client's desires and their hesitations and their goal for their day. So let's go back to the wedding photographer example. There are some couples that want to have a huge party on their day. All they want is to make sure every single person at that giant wedding has a great time. Their whole focus is on their guests. And they're like, please don't make us take pictures for more than 10 or 15 minutes. If that is your ideal couple, then you do not want to write about your cinematic images and how you'll make people look like they're in a magazine, which is the goal of some other couples. So I think people forget to start with the end in mind. Start with your favorite couples and their goals, and then reverse engineer it and talk about how you are the solution to that goal. Like you're the one that will help them get there. And I think people just think couples, and that's where it ends. And it's like, you can get so much more specific than that. And the more specific you can get, the more your favorite people will read your copy and go, she gets us. Like, how did she know that about us? And the more other people will say, that is not for us.
Yes. I'm so glad you said that, Rachel. And like you brought that up, because I always like to say, like, look at the desired outcome first and then kind of work backwards.
Yes.
Because people want to see the desired outcomes. They don't necessarily always want to see the deliverables. Again, going back to buyer types, some people do, some people don't, but they want to feel like, how are you going to change my life? Like, how is this experience with you going to change?
What transformation are you taking me on here?
Like, what is my desired outcome? And then like working backwards. So I'm so glad you said that, because I think that is a crucial point, that if you can figure that out first, working backwards is going to be so much easier than just trying to like throw together buzzwords that you think look good and you think
absolutely
sound
yes
things that you think you should be saying.
And that don't really mean anything.
Yeah, exactly. There are so many photographers. We all do the same thing. Like we all photograph weddings or whatever you photograph. We all do it so differently that it's such a disservice to us and to everyone else to try to adapt to, buzz things and all of that. And I think that's just such a good point. Look at the desired outcome first. I love that.
Absolutely.
Now we know desired outcome. Now we kind of know what our ideal client is, who we want to work with and all that stuff. How do we create this brand voice for ourselves? How do we find our isms, I guess, like any tips and you can do that. And then how can you stay cohesive with it too? Yeah. So not only on your website, but how can you be cohesive with it in terms of like your work, your social media content, your blogging? That way, anytime someone sees a piece of your content or anything that you post online, they can immediately be like, that was Rachel, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a really good way to kind of investigate like your brand voice is to, first of all, write directly to your clients. Photographers have this habit. I think there's probably like a formula, a downloadable PDF or guide on Pinterest like 10 years ago that was like blank photographer for blank couple. And it's talking about people instead of to them. And so I think a really good way to practice your voice is to make sure all of your content and all of your copy is speaking directly to your audience. Don't talk about them. Don't talk about how you work with other people. Talk directly to the people you're trying to draw in so they feel like they're part of this conversation that you're having on your website and in your content too, like on your social media. And I'm glad you said content, because I think a lot of photographers don't realize how different website copy is from content. Like blogging, newsletters, emails, and social media are all content. And there, I love content because there you get to play a little bit. It's just not that deep. Like I know I already said copy isn't that serious, but content is really not that serious.
Yes.
And it's an opportunity for your clients to get to know you as a person rather than a brand. And I think your website copy can do that too, but it should be a little bit more polished and pinned up than your content. But I think it's important to understand kind of the foundation, like we talked about, like, the desired outcome, and then you figure out why you are the answer to it, why you're the person that can get them from A to Z for their photo session or on their wedding day, whatever you photograph. So once you know that about yourself, you're constantly painting the picture of how you are the solution to what they want. And the more clients you listen to, and you listen to the words that they use about their desires and about their outcomes that they want, the more you're going to create a brand language that's catered to them. So I always say, like, copy is just good research. Copy is not written, it's assembled. And that's genuinely what it is. You just pay attention to what your clients are saying, and then you add in your own voice and how you talk and how you speak directly to them. And that, like, Venn diagram where those circles intersect is exactly where your brand voice and everything should flow from.
That's so funny you said that, because as you're speaking, that was the visual that was coming.
Yeah.
I'm a visual person. So that was the visual that I was envisioning. And just like you said, they're coming together. And I really want to bring this home too, on the fact of, like, drill this in of, it's not speaking about them, it's speaking to them.
Yeah.
Because like you said, a lot of it's just about them, or even about the photographer. I think a lot of people's copies about them. And not only it's about the client, but it's talking to the client.
Totally. Like, if you're going to talk about yourself, talk about how you as a person makes their life better.
Exactly. Yes.
So people don't really care that, like, you got your first camera from your grandpa, unless that part of your story makes you as good as you are and makes their experience with you better. Only include the elements, like, even if it's really special to you, you have to be able to say, my clients don't actually care about that. You're a little harsh with yourself.
I'm interrupting my own episode to let you know that if you have not started your free trial with Aftershoot, that this is your sign that you need to follow the link in today's show notes so that you can try Aftershoot, which is the AI culling and editing program that I like to use in my business that's helped us cut down so much on editing time. And it's the only program that is a simple flat pricing and you're not paying per image. It also has unlimited storage, so you don't have to worry about overshooting, which, let's be real, totally happens as a photographer. And it also can work offline. And my favorite thing is that you can build and have smart profiles, which are kind of like presets, but a smarter version of it. So it really gets to know the style that you want, and you can basically train the AI to be the style that you're wanting. So I think this is the leading AI in editing and culling. And if you haven't already, just give it a shot for yourself. Give it a try and use the link in today's show notes to do your free trial. You do. And it's one of those things where people are like, oh, it's so hard to talk about myself. So I don't know what to do on my About Me page. It's so hard to talk about myself. And a good, easy way is to think, well, you don't have to. Like, it doesn't have to be about you. It has to be about your clients. And like you said, not just about your clients, but to your clients. Love that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then too, I feel like with just, having your copy, but then also having a portfolio and stuff too. It needs to match and it needs to, like, go together. So I think as a photographer, that's something that I see a lot as I do audits and look at my students' work and their websites and stuff. I'm like, what you're saying in your copy is not matching the portfolio that you have right next to it. It's not making sense. It's not clicking. There's that gap that's happening. As soon as things don't make sense to people, you lose their trust immediately. So can you speak into how to also cater your copy around your style?
This is a great question, and I'm so glad you brought it up because people never think about this.
Yeah.
And it's actually something we started doing last year. If you hire us to write your copy, we edit your portfolio at the end of the week. And I always do it the last day when the copy is all, like, pinned up, because I want to read through, like, we write a one reader document. So the one person we're talking to, and then I read through the copy and say all the claims you're making about yourself in this copy. And then I choose the photos that actually support that claim. Like, if you say you're the life of the party and you're going to be dancing on the dance floor, I want you to have so many reception photos.
Yes.
Because that means if we wrote that, that means your clients want that too. So you want to show people having the time of their life. This is my favorite example to give. My friend Cherie said it, and I think it's hilarious. If you talk about how you don't pose clients and every single photo on your site is of people touching foreheads, then, like, it does not make any sense. And what you said is exactly what I always say about trust. You're breaking someone's trust because your website, again, you're building a case for yourself. You're making claims about yourself. And if the work that you're putting beside it doesn't enhance that and actually kind of makes you sound like a liar, like, that's the quickest way to break someone's trust. So I would tell you to write your copy first and then go through your best 200 images and pick out your top 25 so you can match those best 25 to the copy that you wrote. And when you choose those 25, I want you to think about the words on your site and how they support them rather than like contradict them.
Yes, I love this so much. And like you said, I say the same things as you do. And I think a lot of, as a photographer, as a visual person, we as photographers want to do our portfolio first. That's
totally.
because it's the easy thing for us.
It's the easy part, and I get it.
We avoid words for the most part, most of us, with the exception, but we love our photos. We're visual people. We want to put those photos first and then match, like not even match copy, but just write copy, So I love something that I also want, like what I'm hearing and I want people to take away from as well is write your copy first.
Before anything, before design, before portfolio, because it's going to make your life so much easier. So many photographers buy a template and then they go in the back end and they just kind of like rewrite the filler copy that came with the template.
Yeah.
Because usually it's like pretty directive, which is not a bad thing. But if you're just following someone else's example, this isn't catering to your people at all. So buy the template for sure, but then open up a blank Google Doc and have the conversation in that Google Doc and then come back and rearrange the design, especially because I know all of you are buying show it templates. It's so easy to change them and it's so easy to copy canvases and all of those things and just make it flow. So I promise you, your life will be so much easier if you write the copy first before you do anything else.
Yes. Great tip. I love that. It's probably not what we want to hear, but it's something that I think. No, I know, but it's a good thing. It's okay. Maybe if it hasn't worked this far or I've been putting it off or it's doing this, maybe this is the kick in the butt that you need to hear to be like, this is what I need to do first. And it is going to come easier because it's going to, in the end game, be more converting. It's going to be more compelling. It's going to make sense more. It's going to come together and click more if you do it in that order. I love that. And two, we love marketing here on this podcast too. So talk to us a little bit more about how like having really good copy can help with your marketing and kind of what like practices you see in copywriting that you believe is kind of like relevant to being impactful for marketing your photography business.
Yeah. So all roads lead back to your website. That is a fact. Even if somebody finds you on Instagram, even if your number one source of referrals is Instagram or Pinterest or word of mouth or SEO, all roads lead back to your website because people hear about you and then they want to know more. And the only thing you own is your website. And so I'm going to tell you, your website is the cornerstone of your marketing. You cannot convince anyone if you don't have a website that feels professional. So if we break it down even further, people come to your website and sure, usually by the time they get there, they've already stalked you somewhere else. So they know that they like your work. They're not going to come unless it's SEO. That's the only, or an ad. That's the only time you're going to get cold leads.
Yes.
And usually people clicked on it because they saw something they liked already. So just assume that the people coming to your website already dig your work. So you don't have to explain it. You don't have to explain your style. You don't have to explain how talented you are at actually making photos. What you have to do is explain to them why they want to spend time with you, why they want to hand over their money to you, and what makes you worth that. And that is all in your words. Like you can have the best photos in the world and people still won't book you if they don't trust you. So if your website is the cornerstone of all of your marketing, then your words are what actually make people reach out to you. I'm not saying your work is not important. Photographers, your work is so important, but that's the easy thing. That's the given. People expect when they hire a professional photographer for thousands of dollars that they are going to get good images. Everything that comes with that is the bonus. That is what you are selling, the experience that I know Rachel talks about a lot. It's so important. And that experience starts with the words on your website. It starts with the ease of your website and how user-friendly it is. It starts with kind of answering questions and not being confusing. So when you think about marketing, a lot of people come to me and they're like, well, I'm not getting leads. And I'm like, well, first of all, changing your copy, unless you're going to have like a heavy SEO strategy, is not going to get more people to your website. Your copy is not bringing people to your website. Your copy is converting the people that land there.
Yeah.
So if you are already struggling, having bad copy is just going to push you further away from your goal. The whole point of the copy is to get people to reach out to you. It's not to answer every single question that somebody might have. It's not to get people to sign on the dotted line without a phone call. It's just to get people in your inbox.
I think you nailed it on the head. It's all about like, where is that, that bottleneck happening? Are you not getting the inquiries? Are you not converting the inquiries? And how, like, identifying what that actual problem is. And if you're not converting, like you said, copy has a lot to do with it. And so I love that you talked about that. And I think that's something really important to hone in on. Yeah. What's kind of like one final piece of advice that you want to like tie this up in a bow and leave us with?
I mean, again, I could talk for 40 minutes. Obviously, I'm a rambler about this.
So
but I think the main point of like writing to your clients, I think at the end of the day, copy is just about being really honest with yourself and not being super aspirational about, who I'm trying to work with, what I'm trying to do. Think about what you want your business to look like over the next year or two, not where you want to be in 10 years. Think about what's realistic for you. Think about how your marketing is working. Marketing is like a huge strategic puzzle. There are so many pieces to it. And copy is just something that supports that marketing. But when you're kind of coming up with this strategy, I just always challenge people to get really honest with themselves, because sometimes they're building businesses that are for other people, that they're not actually fit for their own life. And it doesn't actually make sense for the stage that they're in. And your copy really, this sounds so dramatic, but your copy can truly transform your business because it truly changes who's going to reach out to you or not. So if you take it as seriously as that, you're going to be able to uncover your goals. And once you uncover your goals and you match that with your ideal client's goals, that's where like the real magic happens. Yeah. So I think just being honest with yourself about the business you're actually trying to build and not the one that you think you should build, I think is probably the first step to writing like authentic client converting copy.
Amazing. And that kind of circles back to what you said earlier of that it's just not that serious. Like it is and it isn't. And I think people kind of tend to like caught up in, I have to write in an inspirational, like motivational way. It's like, no, that's not, because I got caught in that trap too. I used to be like,
everybody does.
I gotta write something deep and a long caption.
Right.
I'm like, I am not. I am.
No. You have to write something honest. That's it. Because if you're honest, you're going to draw in the people who are attracted to who you are as a person, and they're going to have a good experience with you, and then they're going to recommend you more. So the more honest you can be, the better. So yes, it's not that serious. Like you don't have to be a poet, but it's serious enough that like be yourself. If you're not yourself, you're not going to attract the people you want to work with.
Exactly. And I also think that makes it easier too. If you just be yourself and don't look to how other people's writing styles are, what AI's writing style tells you it should be. I know that's a whole other thing for a whole other time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that. It's not that serious. Be yourself. Love that, Rachel. And it's everything you said today is just amazing. It's a lot of things clicking.
Good.
Home. It's amazing. And I'm hoping the same thing happened for everyone listening. But I always love to wrap up my episodes too and just ask you, like, what's bringing you joy right now? It can be anything.
It has been like 60 degrees in Denver this week, and I needed some sunshine. I needed some warmth. It's like the middle of February right now, and I was having some winter sad. So that has been bringing me a lot of life.
That is enough joy right there. And itself, I love that. Yeah, sunshine does wonders.
Yeah, it's like transformative.
Seriously, I love it. Well, I'm so glad that it's nice where you're at and you're enjoying the weather and all that. But why don't you tell us where we can find you too?
Yeah, so we are super active on Instagram, just at Green Chair Stories, just the business name. And then there's 10 years of blogs, free information on our website, greenchairstories.com. And we send out a newsletter every single week. It's always different. It's very fun. Again, it's not very serious, but it helps you kind of think outside the box and think about who you are rather than who everybody else is. So definitely sign up for the newsletter. I think our best stuff is there.
I love it. I'll make sure to link it all below and everything. But thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on. I loved this episode. It was so good. Like so fun talking to you.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
Yay. And there you have it. I hope you are leaving with a ton of notes and a lot of changes and action that you want to take today, because that is the whole point of the Gold Biz podcast. I want you to walk away with tangible things, and I hope this episode was able to help you do that. If you haven't already, make sure to screenshot and share this one to your story so I can see which episode you're loving the most and share the love in return. But thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you as always. Keep shining, and we'll see you next time.